أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Our topic today is Nafs Ammara, and as mentioned in the previous talks, the tasawwuf is all about purifying this part of our creation. And it's mentioned in the hadith book that Rasulullah told us that whoever's recognized their nafs has recognized Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To fully explain nafs's creation, how it came about, and the difference between and what our body involves. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that reflect on our own self, on our own creation. It's only when we reflect on our own creation that we recognize and plan as to how we could make ourselves better, as better humans. Now, as we learn from the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, the structure, the body of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. Now that remained, and according to these facts, the structure itself remained for some time as a statue. Then after some time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed that He will blow His spirit into it, the ruh into it, and then it became into a living being. So there's two parts to our creation. One is the physical structure, which is lifeless, which is what we learn from the Quran Kareem, that it's lifeless until the time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put soul into it. And they both are opposite. One is visible, the other one is not visible. One's sustenance, food, is different to the others. But they both need to be maintained in equally amount of balance. If one of them receives greater balance than the other one, then that creates conflict. One becomes weaker and the other one stronger. But what benefits us the most, and a lot of people neglect that, is the ruh. If ruh is empowered more, then that becomes useful to us, that benefits us. But we use human intellect and think that we need to empower our physical structure more than the soul. The physical structure requires the food that we eat, the physical food that we eat. However, the soul, the food doesn't do anything for the soul. It doesn't give any strength to it, other than the body itself to carry it around. The food for soul is the zikr of Allah, and that gives the strength. And as you can imagine, the soul is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And anything that stems from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly is all great, masoom, innocent. And Allah tells us in the Quran, قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. And the ruh is the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Unfortunately, rather than making our soul stronger, we are making our body stronger, our nafs stronger. The aim of the nafs is the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the nafs are in nature in conflict and opposition to each other. So the nafs and the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by fitra, by nature, operate in parallel. Because the nafs doesn't recognize boundaries or limitations. It's wild. Its nature is to be wild. And as we know, anything that has these kind of traits, the wildness, the disobedience, the rebellious traits, will not recognize any restrictions. It doesn't recognize any restrictions. If you impose any kind of restrictions on it, you will rebel against it. And this is what makes it conflicting. As Muslims, we have certain boundaries, we have certain rules that we need to follow. And one of the most important ones is to pray 5 times a day. There is a boundary that we need to stay within. We need to pray at certain times, in certain ways, with certain intention. And this goes directly against the nature of the Nafs. Nafs doesn't like to be woken, doesn't like to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning for Fajr prayer. If you hold it to any kind of wild desires, it keeps on barking like a dog. It will keep on barking like a dog until a person commits to what it intends to do.